I've been going through a lot of the comics that I've accumulated in the past year, 2 years maybe, and I'm starting to actually read them and instead of just buying more and more. And I'm finally took time to read this and watch the accompanying DVD. Seth Dominion, if you're not familiar, is a documentary that was released in 2014. It was filmed between 2006 and 2013. By a Canadian filmmaker, and it's a sort of a biography, but mostly just documentary on Seth. It's more unusual that it's not like, oh, he grew up at this time and he did this and he did that. It just talks about Seth as an artist, but I found it really fascinating, so I'm wanting to share it. So instead, along with the DVD, which is a 47-minute documentary, there's two 5-minute animated shorts as well. There's an hour-long video with the launch of George Sprott in the Drawn and Quarterly store, and there's a making of information. This book also includes comics that Seth has done. Now, this 2-pager is his story of like the documentary, like when he was approached and the filming and the things that he learned from it. It is really small but really beautiful, and I think this is that something that they talk about in the documentary is that he does diary comics, and what he does is that he created rubber stamps and ink for a lot of these various poses. So if it's him talking, he just stamps it and he writes it, draws in the dialogue to save time. He's very prolific, and I'm not familiar with him as much, but what I found out was that he's sort of like Chris Ware. He's doing comics. He's doing all these other side projects and personal art that's really for no one else but for him. And it's just a fascinating, and the more you learn about it, I learn about it, the more fascinating it is. So it has some comics, some things from his sketchbooks. I love his cartooning. A snippet from If It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken. Here. And then the Wine King of Dominion. Just really nice snippet of his art and his style. It looks small, like there's a lot of words, but it really reads easy. It's easy to read, and it just flows very well. I mean, usually when I see this, I think, okay, can this person story tell? But you can just tell that everything here just flows so well. More from his sketchbook, and I think this is his wife. Just great work. And then, oh, here's a picture of him and his wife. And then on the other side, you have a picture of Seth. Seth, as you know, is dressed like 1940 style. And then this is just his biographical information. This is a picture of his mother. His parents in the 1940s. Him as a child. Him as an older boy. And then this is like his 1980s, kind of like, I'm going to call it Billy Idol type of phase, where he had the blonde hair, the long blonde hair. This is what they call the Mr. X crew, where you have Dean Motter, Seth, and here Bill Marks, and then you hear Dean Motter, Seth, and William Diamond. And some of these personal photos are just interesting to me because I'm learning more and more about the history of these independent cartoonists. And when I look back and I see these pictures, it's sort of like when you go back and you see pictures from the 60s where you see like a couple of the Beatles will be hanging out with a couple of members from the Rolling Stones, and you're thinking about all that greatness. So this is what they call the Toronto Three, which is Seth, Joe Matt, Chester Brown. And here they are again. And there's some other pictures with other cartoonists that you'll find out, but you have Julie Doucet, you have Irene Brunetti, you have Adrian Tomina, you just have Robert Crumb, you just have all this amazing talent just hanging out with each other, creating all this cool stuff. Family portrait, picture of his father here. But there's a couple of pictures from Seth's wedding. Love old school photography. But there's a couple of pictures I wanted to point out that just kind of blew me away. So this is the cartoon wedding guest. So from left to right, Joe Matt, Chris Oliveros, Alan Hunt, Chris Ware, Dan Klaus, Seth, Maurice Velacoop, Ivan Brunetti, Adrian Tomina, Chip Kidd, Chester Brown, and then James Sturm and Peter Berkemo. This is from 2002. I mean, this is an amazing gathering of just talented cartoonists. It kind of blows me away. More pictures of Seth and his wife. And this is the one that really kind of like blew me away totally. This is sort of, to me, like a rock and roll equivalent would be like if you have a picture with Bob Dylan with the Beatles and a couple of members of Cream and some of the Rolling Stones here. I'm just going to give you a left to right on this group from a conference in 2012. So standing from left to right, back to forward. Gary Panter, Aline Kaminsky-Crum, rest in peace. Phoebe Glockner, Ivan Brunetti, Seth, Dan Klaus, Alison Bechtel, Gary Lieb, Justin Green, Chris Ware, Robert Crumb, Ben Kitchor, and then seated Joe Sacco, Francois Mouly, Art Spiegelman, Hilary Shute, Linda Berry, Carol Tyler, and Charles Burns. This is like, I even can't explain how much talent is in here. I've read a lot of work from a lot of the people here. There's some people that I need to read their work, but I've read a lot of work from a lot of people here, and it's just amazing. You have all this talent. Like I said, it's like having the Beatles hanging out with the Rolling Stones, you know, with Cream, and maybe Bob Dylan just hanging around, and they're just hanging out together, and you're like, all that godly talent is all together. So for me, I just thought that was just a really cool thing to see. I like a lot of the history and learning a lot of the things that about the industry and about what's going on. Adrian Tomina, Linda Berry. I've read two of her books and both were phenomenal. Adrian Tomina is one of my favorite cartoonists. Is in my top 3 of favorite cartoonists. And just portraits of Seth. So I don't think this is a lot of dough. The documentary is pretty fun. The animated shorts are actually pretty interesting. They really capture the Seth style, and they're short, but they're really good. He's just an interesting person, as I said. Here I'm going to show a couple of things here, I think. He's building this city in his spare time called Dominion. And I'm not sure if he's using it as a model. I'm not sure if it's just something like Chris Ware likes to do, like when he's taking pictures, like here's a picture. This is like the models he used for his city of Dominion. He's just actually creating all these buildings, and with side advertising and logos. It's just fascinating how this guy can just do so much work and be so prolific, and then just keep cranking it out at a high level. So if you're a fan of Seth, I would definitely recommend getting this. The DVD, if you have a DVD player, I do because I'm an old head, was great, perfect condition, good quality, good sound, well filmed, well recorded. Like I said, this is probably, if you're a fan of Seth, this is great to get. I think it's also a really interesting time capsule and a collection by somebody who's just a really phenomenal artist that people sometimes don't talk enough about for whatever reason. But he's just, in my opinion, he's just brilliant. So I definitely recommend getting this. Thanks.